get paid is no walk in the park, more like a forest of confusion. Winning in the Room is a U.S. growth initiative where storytelling is the way to find the treasure. My name is Ken Derry, and together with U.S. Growth and my Impact colleagues, we introduce Storified Finalist conversations that give you two new, but really old, tools to ditch dull presentations. To storify a conversation is to turn the conversation into a story, and the two tools are narrative styles called the Greek style and the cold open. The Greek style is classic. You might remember it as the 5-paragraph essay. So classic that if our competitors are using any structure, it's probably this. So why even float the Greek style if it's not a differentiator? Great question. First, yes, we are encouraging you to lean into the second option, the cold open. More on that in a minute. But second, the Greek style is a classic because it works. And I see an opportunity to improve our skills here. I find it hard to believe, and I would bet cash money, that our competitors are not being coached on the nuance of Greek structure. So within this classic space, we have an opportunity to do the Greek style better than anyone. The second path we are introducing is called the cold open. Progressive, different. Our competitors are not using this style because I stole the structure from my days as a journalist. We're calling it the cold open because you open not with an introduction of the team or a thank you for the opportunity or anything to otherwise warm up the audience. You start with a story, not unlike the cold open of movies where we're thrown right into a car chase before we even get to the title credits. So let's get to it. The Greek style. This is from the book Harvard Business Essentials Business Communication, which was one of my textbooks when I taught this class at NYU. Start with the introduction. Begin with objectives. You prepare the audience to hear the speech favorably. Now what does that mean? The book gives some examples. Talk about the audience. Talk about the previous speaker. Talk about the event. Talk about a moment in history. And this is what Steve Jobs does in his iPhone presentation. Talk about the point of the speech, and I like that last one. An example would be, today we're going to show you 3 ways Marsh can improve your program. Or, today we're going to show you 3 reasons to switch brokers. You tell the audience where you're going, the theme, the meme, and what your structure is. Pro tip, not all of this needs to be on a slide. Wouldn't it be great if you just had one symbol to represent all of this, like a life vest or a bridge? Next is narrative. Narrative means story. It's covered with 1 paragraph in the Harvard book. This is amazing and mysterious to me, but this is where you use the 3 C's, and I'll talk about the 3 C's later. Essentially, what you're trying to do with a narrative is make the story human and establish a human connection. Next is argument. You need to transition into this space. Clear as day, a neon sign in Vegas that you have entered the next section of the conversation. An example might be, story, 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 and that's why we're here today. This is where you give the proof. This is where you make your case. Next is the refutation. Consider this the Q&A portion. Here you anticipate rebuttals or resistance to your pitch. Why should we go through the trouble of paperwork, of switching brokers? Find a way to spin questions into an opportunity to reinforce the theme and repeat the meme. Ideally, you have been having a conversation the entire time, but if not, this is the opportunity to open the floor and give the client or prospect some agency. And finally, conclusion. This is not a summary or rehash of everything you just said. Instead, the key words here are crystallize and resonate. Turn to the theme. What is it you want them to remember long after the presentation has ended? Credential Marsh. Tell the client or prospect what to think or do. Say the meme one last time. They should be saying it with you. And close to win. Okay, let's talk about the cold open. Again, I'm stealing this from my time as a journalist and repurposing it for our use. Ready? Here goes. Hook, bridge, body, kicker. Boom, done. That easy, right? When all is said and done, the only difference between the Greek method and the cold open is how you start. The hook does the same thing as the narrative. I'm just giving it a name that says what it does. Hook the audience with a compelling story. The bridge connects the story to the body by explaining the relationship between the two. It is a signpost, and that is the word I want you to think of with the bridge, not unlike what the introduction does from the Greek method. Where the intro warms the audience up, the bridge gets the audience up to speed. It is a signpost indicating what this presentation is about. My example a moment ago from the argument section applies, and that's why we're here today. So the bridge covers portions of the intro and the argument from the Greek method. In a minute, I'm going to give you an example of a woman named Gina. So, for example, the hook would be that story, Gina's story, and the bridge would be, and that's why we're here today. Body, same as the argument. It's the proof and the case for an organizing principle. And finally, kicker, same action as the conclusion. Crystallize and resonate, no summary. I anticipate some questions. What kind of stories do I tell? Great question. I know we're being trained to tell the client story, which is a meme by the way, But I'm taking this a step farther. It's a big question with a big answer. In short, I'll say this. You have three options: direct, parallel, something new.
Well, what does that mean?
A direct story is the client or prospect's specific story, such as Harris County Sports and Convention Corporation. In 2021, they held the Astro World Music Festival, during which 10 people died during a crowd surge in one of the performances. Massive problem on many levels. A direct story would be recapping the incident, the risks, the money lost and or saved, and hopefully for our sake there's ways our proactive approach covered them and capped the disaster. In short, it's a story told in second person. This happened to you, you did this, together we did that, and so on. They are the main character, and it is a true story. A parallel story is an analogy, an allegory, something figurative that symbolizes and perhaps better illuminates the issues the client or prospect is facing. A parallel story can be told in first, second, or third person. It can be true or made up. First person would be an analogy from your own specific life experience or an experience that you're imagining. This is good. Second person is a story analogous to their experience. The main character is them, so you would use the word you. You did this, you did that, you experienced this, you thought that. This is bad. Don't do it. It's possible this approach could work, but the probability of you missing the target is too high. What if the listener says, no, I didn't do that or think that at all? You lost them. You missed. Here's how it can work. By starting with a question. Have you ever pulled into the driveway and realized you never took the coffee off the roof of your car? This is good. This is great. Go there. That's engaging. That gives them a kind of permission to play make-believe with you in real time. Third person. Let me tell you about my friend Gina, a senior engineer plateauing at her contracting firm. She's getting skipped for promotions. Career is passing her by. She needed to get with the times, but she didn't know where to start. She saw numerous career advisors. No one had the answer that seemed the right way to go. Finally, she met an advisor who told her to take a cooking class at night for fun, to clear her head and relax. So there she was, in the kitchen at a local cooking class held in her town's high school cafeteria. As soon as she walked in, it hit her. She saw it. The kitchen looked nothing like what she remembered in her college days when she worked at the local bar and grill. Ovens were digital. The prep station had all been modernized for safer food handling, and she saw she needed to do that in her own career. She saw she was not up to speed on the modern ways of engineering. After that first class, she enrolled in courses on digital design, 3D printing, and in time she was the CEO and president. I see you as Gina. You've grown so much, you need to modernize the way you cover risk. To understand how she got here is to understand the moment that you, dear prospect, are in now. So I love this space. I think this is the best option, but that's an opinion. My comfort level is high here. This is the widest berth for making something up that aligns with the specific issues of the client or prospect. You might feel differently, and that's great. The third and final type of story is what I'm calling something new. Calling that simply because it is new and unknown right now to me, Ken Derry. There's no getting around the fact that I, Ken Derry, am considered middle-aged now. I'm a white American, third-generation New Jersey with a graduate degree and a life experience that only I could have had. All this sets up my own personal worldview. Your worldview, your you-ness, is inextricable to the way you communicate. So what I'm saying is storytelling is cultural. There is something within you that points you, guides you in the choices you make to interact with the world. As far as a Storified finalist conversation, there might be something in your you-ness that doesn't fit with a direct or parallel story. I'm giving you those two options. You might have an idea that isn't represented. As long as you tie it into the argument or bridge in the cold open, I think it's fair game. I'll get into this and more when I talk about the 3 C's. How long is your presentation? An hour? You need to map out how that looks within the structure you choose. For a 60-minute presentation, are you going to spend 10 minutes on the introduction or hook? It's possible, I guess, but it seems long. Developmental molecular biologist John Medina is the foremost expert on the topic of how the mind reacts to and organizes information. In his book, Brain Rules for Work, he says attention spans run in 10-minute intervals. Plus, research indicates the audience has made judgments on you within milliseconds. So, according to Dr. Medina, it's safe to assume the initial few minutes of presentations are important, especially if there are strangers in the room. If you're giving a talk, the first words out of your mouth should probably be memorized ones. If you're scoring at home, that's on page 184. All right, everyone, that's all I got for you for lesson 1. I'm sure you have a ton of questions. Remember them, write them down, and let me have it when we meet in person. Until then, up next is lesson 2, starting from scratch.
Winning.